Hi, everybody. I'm here with Colleen.
Oh, hi.
That would be you.
That would be me.
And I think the announcements, let's see, this comes out Tuesday. So there are human Reiki classes this month. Colleen's teaching in person in Rhinebeck, New York next month, Animal Reiki 1 and 2. That's at the Omega Institute. And then at the end of the month, we teach distance animal Reiki, so online animal Reiki. And it's possible by the time, no, not by the time this is released, but next week we will have registration up for our in-person animal Reiki classes, kind of slash experience that we are doing here it's not Portland, it's outside of Portland. It's in Welch's, Oregon, if you are a local. It's kind of at the base of Mount Hood. And that will be in July. We are doing it in Wildwood Recreation Area. So it's just a beautiful wooded forest on a beautiful salmon river here. It's called the Salmon River here. And so we'll be teaching Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Reiki Master, and that will be at the end of July. Like I said, registration is coming soon. It should be up next week. We will, of course, keep you all updated. And that is going to be more of kind of like an experience class as well, because we'll be doing Reiki with the trees and the rivers and any critters that join us. It will be outside amongst the trees in a shelter that is kind of, like a nicer, not enclosed shelter, but it's got a roof, things like that. So we're really excited about that. That'll be with Colleen, myself, and Sue. And it's the first Animal Reiki in-person class that we've taught in quite a while. So we're excited to do that. I'll talk more about that when registration is actually up. Anything else? I think that's probably pretty good.
Let's see. Usually we announce when the Q&A is. Q&A
Oh, it's
will.
tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah, right? It's tomorrow, Danny. So if you are here live, people who are listening to this later won't actually, it'll be too late, but we'll be with our live Q&A tomorrow. So if you want to join us tomorrow, it's at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So it's a slightly different time than this one. And that's where it's a more open format where we talk about Reiki subjects and ask questions and things like that. So it's a little bit of a different experience with us. Okay, so we have been talking about this month. So we just started this last week, but this month we are talking about why Reiki is such an important energy and practice for this moment and why it's so helpful in this moment. It is becoming more mainstream, but it is not quite as mainstream, I think, as many of us think it should be, because it's such an amazing energy and an amazing practice to do. So, why do we think that it is the perfect practice or energy healing modality to have during this moment and during this moment in time, and even in moment in time in our environment and human history? Not that there isn't always been reasons that Reiki would have helped during other times in human history. So, there's a lot of people right now that are feeling chronic emotional stress, overwhelm. We see so much online. We experience and feel so much because of our digital worlds that we live in and social media. We've said this before, that it is one of those things that, I don't know if humans' brains, well, they haven't been wired to experience so much from so many different parts of the world. And while there is a lot of benefit to that, it also has, its pros and cons for sure. So there can be a lot of empathy, there can be a lot of emotional stress and a lot of overwhelm right now, and has been, for the last definitely 5 years, as we have gone through some pretty global circumstances and, of course, changes. Many people are feeling a bit disconnected from their purpose or maybe even their spirit. There can be that mental exhaustion and burnout that people are experiencing. Anxiety and racing thoughts are pretty high these days and right now, and have been, as again, we just experience so much from our online experiences and things that are happening in the world. And I think it just exacerbated by, what we are might be personally experiencing, but then also kind of what the world is experiencing. And also with the technology, I mean, of course, you have the physical aspects of that our bodies may or may not be used to, with the output of what comes from technology as far as, EMFs. That the sun is super active, has been for the last about year and a half. So that can exacerbate it. So there's all of those physical aspects to it as well. There's a lot of people experiencing spiritual confusion, or crisis even, as we, may be moving from a even religion that um, we have been a part of for our lives, maybe even generations. And so that can have some confusion with it. Sometimes even energy healing modalities, as there are different aspects to it that change, or maybe we evolve from it or change what we're called to in it. There's a lot of understanding of ourselves with our wounds or traumas, as we are as I think that this is a bit of a positive side to social media, is that we are talking about these things a lot, and so there's realizations coming into our own lives and our own awareness. Also, so much of our society right now is maybe even, because we're talking about it so much, even unearthing it within ourselves. There's a lot of, on the positive side of this, that therapy has become more acceptable, understanding the things that maybe we thought were normal in past generations that you look at now and you're like, wait a second. People are understanding even neurodivergency a lot more, and understanding maybe even things that in their own lives that um, that is awakening and understanding within themselves. And while that's a good thing in the long run, it can be challenging in the short term, as it brings it to the surface, and kind of puts it within our in the forefront for our lives. And as you move through processing of these things, it certainly can be a bit of an upheaval, or um, the our experience right now with it can make it more challenging in our personal lives. And it's funny because we have this connection through our digital world, and yet we can feel maybe even a sense of loneliness, maybe unsupported. We can have our difficulty sleeping, which exacerbates all of it. Focus and clarity can have struggles. And I don't mean to blame this all on technology, because as well, here we are connected, right? Whether you're here in this group, and what happened in the chat this morning is everybody was putting where they're joining from. And it's such a beautiful circle because it's national and international. We have people literally from all parts of the country, all parts of the world that are joining us here. And that's just here in this circle that we're in together, that's at a certain point in time during the day or evening, depending on where you're joining us from. That doesn't even include the people who are watching this later and joining from all parts of the world as well. So welcome to you too. And as you all well know, that there is that beautiful piece of technology, and that Colleen and I are supporters of technology. So I don't mean to make this all about that, even though it's kind of come out that way. However, I do think that there are aspects of it that are really drawing attention to some of these things that are causing causing or making us understand struggles right now, or that we are having in this moment in time. And so there is I think that that's a big piece of it. There's also, I think, a longing for healing that is happening right now, and that is maybe even due to what I was talking about earlier, where because talking about challenging topics that have happened to us or that we are experiencing has become a lot more commonplace. And people are sharing this authentically, which I think is a beautiful piece. I know it's helped not just me in my own life, but really in my family has helped a lot of an understanding of self through that. But that can create this that okay, so I'm understanding it within myself. So how do I heal this? It's that longing for that healing aspect. And that can be challenging to know where to start and how to start, and even the courage to start, because sometimes that can be one of the hardest steps within it, is that courage to start. And so all of those things to say that that is such a huge reason why I think Reiki is such a beneficial energy for this moment in time. And why, while it's not super mainstream yet, I think why it's becoming more and more mainstream at a rapid pace. And a lot of energy healing modalities, or, things like sound healing, I'm just going to kind of lump all of those things into this. It's these complementary ways of moving each of ourselves into wellness. And obviously Reiki is kind of the basis of our spirituality, how we move through these times, how Colleen and I and so many of you, and Danny and so many of you, why we're here. It is a common denominator that either we are deep into our Reiki journey, or we're just beginning to be in our Reiki journey, and we understand that it is calling us on a deeper and deeper level at all times, because it's also more than just a technique. So we have the Reiki energy, that is this energy that's outside of ourselves. It's this enlightened energy from the highest sources of consciousness. And then we also have the tools and techniques that help us as human beings to channel that energy, that enlightened energy, wake it up within ourselves. And as our business is called Reiki Lifestyle. We also very much believe that it's a way of living that helps us to move into that wellness, that helps us to bring harmony to our body in a physical sense, to our mind, and to our spirit. And as I said, it's becoming more and more mainstream. And a part of that is that it is recognized by the National Institute of Health as a complementary therapy. It's used in medical settings. So we're seeing more and more hospitals that are using Reiki within their program. So just off the top of my head, the Mayo Clinic, um, oh, what's the other one? John Hopkins is using it. And you see like the Center for Reiki Research that is helping to put together studies from all over the world that are well researched. They grade them is totally the wrong word because it's not like an A and a B and a C type grade, but they are going through and checking the quality of the studies and, letting us know, the ones that don't know those things, right? As well, which studies are actually very well done, are things that we can use in our, if we're giving presentations or trying to introduce it to hospitals and things like that. And so it's becoming more mainstream in that way as well. And so that's super helpful because I mean, I think so many of us that are here, we all know that it's valid because it's not only helped in us in our own lives, but we see the results of it, of course, but it does bring a validity to it that is super helpful for it spreading further and wider. And so why it's so helpful to during this time is that it does help to bring that really deep healing on all levels. So mental clarity, emotional steadiness, spiritual alignment. Um, it's gentle and powerful. And it's gentle, but that's not always comfortable. Many of us know that we can have huge emotional shifts, huge emotional releases during Reiki sessions. And then other times you feel just phenomenal after a Reiki session because it's powerful. It's filled you up with life force and vitality. And, it's like, I want to do all the things. I just feel so good. We have both ends of the spectrum when it comes to Reiki energy. So, um, it helps you in identifying and healing your priorities in your personal life, your relationships. We talked a lot about that. I think it was in February, and we went through that and how it can help you to clarify all of these things in the different categories of your life. So, why there's spiritual healing with Reiki? I mean, that is a very broad topic that I don't think that we could ever it's endless, right? Talking about it, but just some of the kind of main points around it is that um the energy, the spiritual energy of Reiki it's always present. I know sometimes we can go in and out of cycles of feeling connected to it. And that's kind of more of our human beingness, but it is always present. It's always there for us. It's non-judgmental. It's also intelligent. That's something. It's an enlightened energy, and so to me, it is always intelligent as well. I think that's why it helps us in our clarity with it, with our lives, and helping us to kind of see past all of the layers that we might have. It's helping us connect into our higher self, our intuition, our divine guidance, our inner peace. That is a really big piece of it. I know so many of us that felt very disconnected to our intuition before Reiki. It helps us with that so much, and um, it helps us understand our intuition and what that looks like for us, and also helps us trust it and listen to it. And for some of us, that is a quick process, and others of us, it's a longer process. And so that's a really big piece of how it helps us spiritually. It helps us with a sense of purpose and our spiritual growth. And also, how can we use it in our everyday life in order to move us into wellness, move us into balance in our life, um, help us, again, like I was saying, move through some of those spaces and places of trauma as well. It also brings the mental and emotional healing. Um, and it helps us with our anxiety and emotional overwhelm. It's a stress reduction technique. I think that's kind of one of the most baseline ways that we describe it. It's a Japanese stress reduction technique. We know that that works. We know that that's some of the places that we have the most research around is stress and pain, um, and recovery from surgery. So we know that it would, people definitely experience it from that way. It is s- it's a safe space. It's that gentle and powerful energy that offers a safe space for those feelings to arise, as I said before. But the thing is that what it helps us to do when those feelings do arrive, when those deep seated things do arise, is it also helps us to transmute them. And it's not even just from ourself, even though it is that too, because we are all key, right? Um, it the Reiki energy is also helping us to do that. So it's this external aid or internal aid, however you think about it, that helps us to do that. So it's not just us doing it from our own life force. Um, so that's a really big piece of it as well. It helps us also in that process to restore that emotional resilience, and the ability to respond rather than to react. I think that also comes down to how it helps our nervous system, moving more into our parasympathetic nervous system and out of that sympathetic response. And that's another place that you can see, research around, and books have been written around how Reiki can help us with that. So it takes us more out of that fight or flight or all of the things that comes from the sympathetic response within the nervous system, and more into that peace that's within our parasympathetic nervous system. So it helps with that emotional resilience around it. I know for me, I'm an overthinker. And also on the back of that comes anxiety. How those two interact um, is different for all of us, but I am a massive overthinker, and Reiki can really help with that. The physical symptoms, the mental, emotional symbols, and the spiritual symptoms as well, those deep seated things around that. So, as we know, of course, that Reiki isn't a replacement for medical or mental health care. It works alongside them. It's an integrative therapy, or it's been called a complementary therapy for a long time. Some of the people that work in the medical settings are, you know, using the word integrative now with it, just because that's becoming a more common medical term because it works alongside it. And in my own experience, it also has accelerated some of that deep work that we do. So it also doesn't impose or diagnose. What it's doing is offering that healing through that gentle and the spiritually guided energy. And at the same time, it's not a religion or a belief system. It doesn't require any belief system to work, and it works with people of all backgrounds. So Reiki energy inherently doesn't have any sort of dogma around it. So that's a really beautiful thing, even though it is spiritually guided. I think a lot of people who come into Reiki may not have a defined belief system, or maybe, are just fully viewing it as a biofield therapy. And that's a very common way to have your own perspective of Reiki. And so that's the beautiful thing to it. Is that anywhere from uh, agnostic, to a very long-standing, deeply held religion. It can work with all of it and everywhere in between, and including independent spiritual paths. So that's another beautiful thing about it, because I think in this moment in time, that is something that so many of us are moving to, is that departure from any sort of outside authority on what we should and shouldn't believe. And so that's a really big piece of, I think, why it's working the way it's working right now and why it's so appropriate for right now because it supports people anywhere on their path with it. And all it does is it helps us to dive deeper into our own perspectives around that without any control about how we should or shouldn't believe. So Reiki inherently does not do that. And so that's a really, I think, is such a big piece and why it's becoming more and more popular. I mean, the growth rate of it is just wild. We're starting to hear about it um, in TV shows and things like that. You know, you're hearing it mentioned more and more with it. The other cool thing about it, and speaking of technology, is that it is actually it's not limited by touch because it's not massage. Now you can put gentle hands on, and that's a very common way to practice. And we love that too, but not everybody likes being touched. We can also do Reiki distantly, right? So it's not confined by time or space. And I think that that's a huge piece of it and was certainly a big piece of it through the pandemic when so many of us were, not comfortable being in that kind of space with another person or, a Reiki class, all of those kinds of things. We don't need to go into that piece of it. So, but I think it was why it was so helpful for so many people. And then, of course, as we're doing this in a group of people across the world, we know that it moves through time and space, and it's not bound by that. And I think that that's really important right now too. I mean, as Pluto's in Aquarius, and we have these really big aspects of the qualities of that. Um, it matches the frequencies that we have for right now, and it's needed for that. And also, it's not something that you just have to be in the space of like a meditative type place. So we don't have to spend hours doing it. I think many of us like doing it for hours, but we don't have to spend hours doing it, and so it fits into our busy lives. I know for me, I am a parent and a working parent, and I need Reiki when I need Reiki, and so sometimes it's just Reiki on. I love my practices. I love my practice of self Reiki and how much it connects me. But I can also be outside with my daughter and have my feet in the grass and say Reiki on and be in another level of connection that is really helpful, or when I'm struggling, or when I'm in traffic, all of those things that it offers us, that it helps us. It's a way of living that brings us more into harmony within our mind, body, and our spirit. And I think that it's so adaptable. I think that's why it's another reason why it's so perfect for the lives that we are living currently. And also if we are living a slower paced life, I know that there is so much movement back to that of slow living. Um, that's another place that you really see people. It's like that, you know, pendulum swinging of the it was slow living for eons, and then it got moved into the fast living, and now you're seeing people that are, moving on to homesteads and taking, or having travel that is a slow living type travel. And so you're seeing people yearning for that as well. And Reiki very really works in those time frames as well as you're working with gardens or animals or, meditation or breath work or yoga, all of those things as well that um Reiki also just moves into balance with and comes in this just beautiful harmonious practice. And so even, in both kinds of spaces, whether you're commuting in traffic or you are out with the animals in your garden, um, both places you can use Reiki to help you and support you through this time. So it's to me, it's just such a big reason why it is becoming more popular, why people are gravitating towards it. And not just Reiki, it's energy healing as well. So, it's just the support in all of these ways and all of the ways that they can help us and support us in, we keep saying, unprecedented times. I think we'll probably still be living through those for a while yet, while we are in this kind of time in between time of um, who we've been and where we're going as a species. And what that means, I don't know. That's to each of us decide. So the thing is that you can use Reiki in so many different ways to help support you. So whether that is self Reiki, whether that is a Reiki session, because not of all of us are going to be attuned to Reiki, and that's okay. Just a Reiki session from somebody else helps with this tremendously. Some of us might be called to take a Reiki class, or some of us are, a lot of us here are already attuned, and it's just a reminder and all the different ways that Reiki helps us, and why it's so perfect for the lives that we are living. It's going to just go where it's most needed for us. It knows where that is, even if we don't sometimes, even if it seems like we think we're going this way and it's like, no, no, we're going to go this way for a little while. I mean, how many of us have experienced that? Because, and then we look back and we realize we know why it took us on that path instead of the one that we thought we were on. We know those things in retrospect sometimes, but it knew before we did, because it eventually brings us into that greater level of wellness, that greater level of homeostasis, that greater level of contentment or fulfillment, or wherever you're looking for your life to go, brings us there. Sometimes that's quick and sometimes that's longer, and we go through cycles and spirals of what that looks like. But Reiki, regardless of any of it, is such a beautiful and powerful and gentle and supportive um, energy that we get to use for all of it. I think that's all I have to say. So, Colleen, I don't know if you want to add to it or if you just want to go into the journey.
I think I'll just go into the journey and have you guys answer your questions. I mean, that's why we're all here, right? Because we know Reiki helps us both in healing and in empowerment. And that's what is so beneficial with it, that it does both at the same time. So the journey is actually fairly in depth. If you are new here, we provide options for you to do some automatic writing. You can also go back always and listen to this later again and go back to those questions and kind of contemplate them. Sometimes they come through just in listening in the journey. Also, notice the insights that you receive after this. So, as you're doing your daily things in your daily life, because the energy of Reiki is always, well, not always, but it's mostly about applied spirituality, how it benefits you living in your daily life. So that is another reason Reiki is the healing practice for this moment.